What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. We're back with a top 25 video. We're going Florida State today. We're going to be looking at the Florida State Seminoles after their great run last year, only to get derailed by those damn CFP commissioners that just ruined your season. But they had a great year last year. We're going to be looking at their depth chart. What do they got coming now? What did Mike Norvell cook up in the transfer portal? Who's going to be there? Who are the recruits coming in? Getting ready on their defensive side, which is absolutely fantastic. Christian's going to be breaking that down in full detail, looking at transfers, impact players, and their schedule. We're going to talk about their over-under win total. But before we do that, we got to kind of reminisce a little bit with Florida State fans. Before the Jordan Travis injury, I mean, they were one of the best teams in college football, if not the best. I mean, they were absolutely fantastic last year. They were undefeated. They went undefeated in the regular season. They won the Louisville ACC championship game. We don't talk about the Georgia game. Everybody opted out. So that's just, they finished 13-1, but really they were undefeated and they all just said, hey, this is crap. What happened to us? But they had a hell of a year. Mike Norvell turned that thing around. He's really addressed the needs that he's needed in the transfer portal. You see that this year. A fantastic year all around. You have to give them credit for what they did. They were a Jordan Travis injury away from probably playing, in the playoff, obviously, but also maybe competing for a national title. That's how close they were. That's how good they were. Now, offense this year looks a little different. Obviously, they lost some guys there, and they're still coming into a system, though. Mike Norvell's system is very good. It was very good at Memphis when he was there. Like, he is just a very, very solid coach. Is top 25 in points per game. When you're looking at points per play, they were top 15. Rushing percentage, they were kind of in the back half there, though. Even with Trey Benson there, yards per rush went down last year. Rushes per game went down because really they relied on their pass offense. Passing yards per game, they were top 50. Passes per game, top 50. Pass percentage, top 50. So everybody's kind of there. They really hung their defense on, their hat on their defense, though. Their offense was efficient, but at times last year, you did see them kind of just have that inefficiency, turnovers, those type of things. So they could be better on offense this year, but they got a ton of new pieces out there that we got to talk about.
Yeah, I think first we'll start with their known strength, which is up front. I think they're really good. They've got their tackle duo is really good. Robert Scott, as a backup swing tackle, is a great place to be if you're a college football program. I know he hasn't really worked out in the way that Florida State fans envisioned when he came there, but that's still a really good spot to be with him as your swing tackle. Maurice Smith is your starting center. You're in really good shape there as well. The guards are good. They're fine. Where there's a lot of question marks on this team is the quarterback play, I think. DJ Uiagalelei, he kind of grew last year, but also it was kind of fake. So when you watch the film, it's like, man, Oregon State just they ran a lot of concepts that made it really, really easy for DJU. I don't think that he even had the highest level of processing that like Jordan Travis did at times. So whether that sticks or not is still up in the air. I think they certainly upgraded their quarterback room from just having Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek, but I still think that there's still a question mark there. Trey Benson being gone sucks, but Roydell Williams, I've listened to a lot of Alabama things where they're like, yeah, that was a pretty big loss. He was still going to be in their rotation, but he wanted to go lead a backfield. I think you've got to be thrilled with that. And then the wide receiver room, Malik Benson, kind of like the Alabama situation where he just didn't get on the field. I think he's got talent, but I'm not sure. Hakeem Williams, same thing. I think that he's got talent, but I'm not sure. So we didn't see a whole lot of it last year. So to me, there's a lot of question marks on this team, but if your strength is up front, you're in good shape. So hopefully that just carries them through.
Strength up front, and then you get those running backs in that room. Toafili is another guy, very, very redshirt senior, been around a long time, is a very, very good player. Cam Davis, true freshman coming in. Jalen Lucas, from Indiana, transfer over. Like, I think he looked at this roster and said, hey, we got to be good up front. We're going to run the ball, and then we're just going to get it out to our playmakers. Because Ja'Kai Douglas as well, in the slot, like he is one of those guys. I think in camp they've been talking about him being that playmaker. I know he absolutely cooked my ass on NCAA 25 in a game that I had. So I was like, oh, I gotta watch out for this kid. This kid is out here in that slot role. Like if DJU can just get the ball quick to these guys and not have those turnovers, not have those interceptions that we've seen. Because he does struggle deep. He does struggle with accuracy. He struggles with that. He struggled with that his whole career. If he can get it out quick in this offense, which we have seen them do, okay, then we can be talking about, hey, like all you got to do is just not make those mistakes. Because like we're going to talk about, defense is ready. Defense is top 5 ready. So how's this offense kind of gel? What does that look like? Notable losses for them. obviously the big ones. Jordan Travis out there now with the Jets, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell as well, Bless Harris. Really, it's offensive pieces. I mean, these are the guys they're replacing. There you go there. Keon Coleman, again, transfer coming over. And I think Keon did very good at the beginning of the year, but his numbers did dip a little bit. Throughout the season, you saw the dip kind of go, the inconsistency there. That kind of probably played a role with Jordan Travis. Trey Benson was great. He got drafted, day 2 capital. But again, he was kind of inefficient last year as well. So it's not like doomsday, but losing Jordan Travis was huge because that guy was their heart and soul.
Yeah, you lost your best 4 offensive players, probably 5 with Jaheim Bell. I don't know if I can say any of the players currently on the roster would have been better than them last year. And so that's where it gets a little iffy, is like there's a lot of those guys in the wide receiver room played, so you have to feel pretty good about what we've seen from them.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of things, like, you're really relying on Malik Benson to be a guy, because if he's not, I don't know that there's enough variety, enough depth in that wide receiver room. But overall, I mean, this is one of the more notable loss graphics that we've made in terms of like impact guys that went to the NFL. So it's tough, but I think they can overcome it.
Yeah, they can overcome it. You know why? Because they got Mike Norvell, and he's a fantastic leader, fantastic coach. And they did pretty good in the transfers, or excuse me, the recruits. Like when you look at the recruits and transfers, they were number 11 overall for the 2025 recruiting class, 12 composite ranked there. Luke Cromenhoek, you like him. I'm a little bit down on him compared to you, which doesn't mean that that's low because you're really high on him. When you look at Cam Davis, big kid. I mean, he's going to probably play baseball. Apparently, he's a kind of 2-sport kid there. Leway McCoy, Landon Thomas, again, Elijah Moore, Jonathan Daniels, some of these guys in here. Very, very solid class. They definitely crushed it on the defensive side. That's really where their overall rank comes from. But fill in pieces, guys are there, and then they fill that in with the transfers as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that could help that problem that I just mentioned would be Elijah Moore being immediately ready to play, and he looks every bit as such. So if he can be one of those bigger targets for you, Luke Cromenhoek, man, he's my QB2 in this class. I just think the way he throws the ball is fantastic. I think really they probably turn it over to him after this year. That would be my guess, is that he's their starter next year. Could be wrong. Cam Davis has some of the most exciting film, but also he played quarterback, so it's kind of hard to determine if he has all of the nuances of playing running back. But sometimes I think it doesn't matter. That kid is going to be successful in college football because he's just an elite athlete. So this is a really good class. I didn't even get to mention all the other depth, but really, really good recruiting class. They're doing a really good job in building up the back end of that program.
Watching Cam Davis take a snap at quarterback and then just like zipping back and forth on the high school tape and go through, you're like, damn, this kid is fun. I mean, you watch his huddle tape and you're like, damn, this guy's fun there. The other guy too, they love tight ends like this. Landon Thomas is a guy, I think, number 11 overall, but out of Georgia. And when you look at what he's been able to do, like as a junior, 700 yards, 44 receptions, 8 touchdowns, was the Max Prep Junior All-American second team his junior year. Very good last year. Like he's a guy that very, very solid recruit there. And the one thing I love about Norvell, unlike, some just thought he would just go after the transfer portal and that's how you build a team. He understands you got to build to be a competitive team and to win national titles. You got to have recruits from high school. It's that simple. You got to get those guys in homegrown and develop them. And he's done a good job of that. He had 11 overall. But then what he also does, he goes out there and gets a top 10 transfer class too. Like he knows how to build a team. And the thing with him too, he has a general manager out there and a director of player personnel. They built a very, very solid system that Florida State fans should be excited about because they definitely attack both areas, but they do it with the right personnel. And again, they're transfers. As we look at this, DJU, we've already talked about. Terrence Ferguson is another one that a guy like, hey, they needed an interior offensive lineman. All right, who can we get? Let's go get a kid from Alabama. Now, he was a little bit down this last year. He kind of came in as a 4-star kid, almost a 5-star kid. But hey, if they develop him and get him ready to go, Malik Benson, he has some fantastic tape in junior college 2 years ago. Quick slants and goes. If they just do that with him, if they do the Keon Coleman quick slant and goes, that could be their guy there. They obviously fill out a ton. I could have put all their transfers on here, but those are the guys that I really, really like. Jalen Brown as well. He was a very touted recruit going to LSU. All right, now he's coming over to Florida State. Like these are the guys that they definitely filled around this and gives them that depth.
Yeah, I think, I mean, really, they had to do this with all of their losses, but to me, they killed it. I don't, it was kind of always DJU seemed to be going to Florida State. I think that was one of their main targets, and I
Mhm.
think, should he take that step forward, I think this offense can be every bit as successful as it was last year, provided that everyone kind of does take that step forward with him. Roydell Williams can give you similar stuff to what Trey Benson did if he continues to grow. So I'm curious to see what this offense looks like, but they are not shy when they're throwing darts at players and hoping they work out and become impact players. That's for sure.
No, they go get the guys. And when you're looking at the impact players on the other side, I didn't put it on here, but I should have. Offensive line should be number one. Offensive line. And they had so just another stat to kind of bring it up 190 starts at the FBS level and 123 at Florida State between all of them. So when you're looking at that, you're like, hey, these guys are experienced, developed there. That's going to help DJU and these weapons gain that kind of, hey, all right, how do we play together here? What is how are we looking at our tempo? How's this offense looking? How do we kind of put these pieces together? That offensive line is going to help them develop. That's huge for DJU. This is probably the best offensive line he's played behind. And so that's a big thing for them. And I still think Malik Benson can be that weapon that they need. That that really kind of SEC talent that he was at Alabama coming over to the ACC. I think that he struggled with SEC corners, but I think he can definitely beat ACC corners. So Malik to me is that guy that's really got to take that step for them. But it really relies on DJU. What is he like? Is he going to develop? Is he not going to turn the ball over?
Yeah, I'm excited to see Hakeem Williams in a bigger role this year. I think
Yeah.
his ability to make things happen after the catch it could be unrivaled in the ACC. So I'm excited to see that. And I mean, Roydell, let's see what you got. I like Toafili as well. I think he's still going to be an impact player for this offense. So to me, they don't have a shortage of players who could become impact
Yeah.
players on this list. Yeah,
The worst thing it could be is that everybody's kind of just average or a little bit above
I know.
average. They need dudes. That's the thing. Like, hey, you got to step up. You got to take that next step. Now, when you look at the defensive side, though, Adam Fuller, defensive coordinator out there, he's got dudes. He had holes to fill, but he filled them, and they did a very, very good job of filling the gaps in the transfer portal that we'll talk about. But last year, this defense was phenomenal. They were a top 20 unit in points per game allowed. When you're looking at just third down conversion rate, they were seventh in the country. They got off the field and they said, offense, go take us home. That's what they did there. From a rushing defense standpoint, that's where they kind of struggled. They were back half, like 60, 70 range in a lot of the efficiency metrics that we do. But from a pass defense perspective, they did a pretty good job, when they went after the quarterback. That was their number one thing. They were sixth in the nation in sack percentage last year. Quarterbacks did not have a fun time playing Florida State defense. Now moving forward after the guys that lost, can we say the same thing? I think that's the big question.
I think we can, and it's a tough ask because I don't even think Florida State fans anticipated what Braden Fisk was going to give them down the stretch
Yeah.
last year, and then become a top 50 selection or something like that in the NFL draft. I don't necessarily think that was anticipated, but everyone knew what Jared Verse was last year, and so what I anticipate now is Patrick Payton is going to take that Verse role where he's one of the top edges in the country. Marvin Jones Jr. is your shot at getting Verse again, coming over from Georgia. We'll talk about the transfers, but this is a former 5-star kid. Hasn't gotten a ton of run at Georgia because of the depth there. But when he has, he's been really good. So to me, this defensive front can be just as good as it was last year. They obviously lost some things in the secondary as well because this defense was so good last year, but they returned Shaheem Brown, who I think can be really, really good for them. Earl Little Jr. is coming over as a 4-star transfer from Alabama. So like they went to the big SEC schools and they plucked out the talent that just wasn't getting a lot of run. Brilliant way to hit the transfer portal and brilliant way to continue an already great defense. You just hit the transfer portal hard with dudes that have talent, have athleticism, can fly around the field. I'm very, very bullish on this defense. I think they're going to be very good again. It does start up front, and I think Peyton and Marvin Jones Jr. can take that next step this year.
Hey, step for step, Peyton was just as good as Jared Verse almost in
Hmm.
certain metrics, especially at tackles for loss. He had more. He had 14 and a half, 7 sacks. Like he could definitely just step into that role. And you're like, oh, okay, we got Patrick Peyton still. We'll kind of like lean on him and go there. And when you look at losses, obviously Jared Verse is a big one. Like we understand that kind of what he brought, 9 sacks last year. He was really a big part of that sack percentage. Braden Fisk, like you mentioned, yeah, in the middle, kind of one of those guys. Renardo Green, Jerry Jones, Dylan Brown Turner, Gilbert Edmonds, some of these other guys. Really, it starts with the first two. Those are the guys when you're looking at like, hey, they definitely are guys that they're going to have to replace there. Green was okay, though. 13 pass deflections last year, 43 tackles. So he's definitely another guy to kind of mention.
Yeah, I mean, his film against LSU was probably the best single game corner film I've seen. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's where it gets a little dicey. You are taking shots on all these transfers. I think it's a brilliant way to do it, but that doesn't denote how good these players were for them last year either. That top four there, all NFL guys, all very very good film that you are looking to replace. I think they took steps to do it, but it's not going to be an easy task to get that level of production from the new guys either.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then, hey, you know what? We got to talk about these recruits because, like I said, they got guys coming in that are very, very good. Charles Lester III, number 8 rated cornerback out there. Jamari Howard. They went after the cornerback positions. Like you mentioned, they definitely went out there and got some guys there. Kai Bates is kind of in between, kind of linebacker / cornerback. Probably you got to put on some weight. He's a tweener, so he's an athlete. He was a dual kid, so he's one of those ones that's kind of interesting to me. Other guys, when you're looking at this, Jaden Paris, Ricky Knight, Amari Williams is the guy that I want to kind of mention here. Amari is a guy, like when you're looking at him, 6'4", 215, number 7th rated athlete, but he's going to play edge for them. Very, very good. He played both snaps. He has to play wide receiver a little bit. He got 16 passes, had 400 yards. So his hands are good there. 34 tackles, really good on that side of the ball.
Got to put on some weight there.
Yeah.
So I hope that this is a down the road type of acquisition. But to me, yeah, he can be the prize. I think those two corners at the top, especially, have as much upside as him. But I think Amari Williams can be the 2 years down the road. We're talking about him in
Yeah.
light of Patrick Payton, Jared Verse. So this is a great class. It's a little lighter, I think, but I think when you focus on getting these top level players, that's what happens. I think they're in a good spot, and there just aren't that many roster spots because they hit the portal so freaking hard.
They did. They hit the portal hard, and this is kind of where they go. Marvin Jones Jr., number kind of one of the best edges in the class out there in terms of transfer ranking, whatever you want to look at that. Comes in as a 4-star transfer ranking from Georgia. He was a former 5-star guy, so he definitely has that pedigree there. Sean Murphy from Alabama, Earl Little Jr. from Alabama. They just went to Alabama and said, "Hey, give me your tired, your poor, your masses. Come here." Come here and let me go play defense for you. Cam Riley as well from Auburn. So they definitely attacked that. Amarian Cooper from Colorado. Just really kind of wing got guys. And wing got dudes, like you said, the high caliber guys, the guys that can step up and play immediately after playing in the SEC.
Yeah, Earl Little's the one, 13th ranked corner in the portal, but to me, this is a kid who can step in and play right away. You mentioned it, but I think Marvin Jones Jr. was the 5th ranked edge rusher in the portal, so they went and got guys that can play right away and should play right away, and so I think this was the way to do it. You went hard at getting really really talented recruits towards the top of the board and got the insurance if those recruits can't play right away, right? And these guys are more than insurance here. I think this defense is going to be insane once again.
Once again, we're back. Impact players here: Patrick Payton, Darrell Jackson, Joshua Farmer, DJ Lundy. These are all guys that definitely can play that role for them. Guys that are going to be kind of relying on lead that defense. And I think these guys are going to be those guys that kind of lead that defense while the other pieces come together and gel a little bit. But to me, it's Patrick Payton, right? I think he can take that next step. And I don't know what your grade is on him. I don't know where you have him in terms of NFL draft, but I mean, he could put himself in that first round category, can he?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's probably right outside of it right now for
Mm-hmm.
me. I just want to see a little bit more, probably just landing a little bit more production. I think he was productive last year. The film's really really good. This is a great edge class, so it's going to be tough for him. But he's the prize on this defense. I think as far as the rest of the impact players go on this list, I think this is right. I also think that once again, 5 players that we mentioned on that transfer portal or one of those recruits could land on this list. So it is up in the air as far as who can step up and make plays for them, but I think they've got enough dudes to do it. Peyton is the guy to me.
And I want to mention Norvell does a very good job of developing that special teams. Like he does do that. So not on the impact players here, but they come in again with a very, very solid special teams unit. Jalen Lucas, that transfer I talked to you guys about, he's probably one of the most experienced kick returners. He was an All-American kick returner. He's going to be there. They have an Australian punter. That's all that matters. They have an Australian punter out there, Alex Mastromano, and then Ryan Fitzgerald. So they have a very, very solid strength there from a defensive side. Like, hey, they're going to be putting positive field positions, especially for this defense, and they can do that. That's exciting to see. Now, when we look at the schedule, over under 9.5. So they definitely, like, when you're looking at this, and we just did Oklahoma in our last one, they were at 7.5. So this is that 9.5 group. So they're expecting, hey, can it get to 10 wins? They got Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis, California. Those are some solid games to play in the first 4 games there in terms of getting ready to go. At SMU, Preston Stone is out there, quarterback, but SMU playing up in the ACC now. That's a whole different brand. And then you got Clemson, right? And really that game against Clemson is one we circled last year for them. They've got over that hump. What does it look like this year? So they're probably going to be undefeated going into that Clemson game. And who the hell knows what Clemson's going to look like in terms of like that program and where that's going to be. But over under 9.5, it looks good for over, I think.
It's close. I think, they just have to be perfect in their games that they're expected to win, I think, because Clemson, at Miami, at Notre Dame are 3 tough games. And so I think winning 1 or 2 of those is a feasible route. I also could see, Miami actually having it this year and that being a really tough game to go at Miami. I know they've been a bit down over the last few. And Clemson, you could say the same thing, but Clemson's got a ton of wide receivers that would challenge this kind of newer secondary or less experienced secondary than what they would have had last year. So I'm going to go over. I do think that they take the game against Clemson. And then I think they kind of sweep the ones they're expected to win. So to me, this is a 10-win team. I can't really get any higher than that, but I think they'll take 10 wins after last year.
I just think that they're the better team in the ACC. So when you're looking at that, like I'll give them over 2. It's going to be close though. Like, I mean, I kind of laughed at Georgia Tech. They have a pretty fun offense. So Georgia Tech, Boston College, Castellanos is out there. Like the defense is going to get tested early. So definitely got to kind of step up. They're playing Jade Knott, one of the best running backs in the country in California. So like these are the things that you're going to have to look at that defense early. I'm at probably 10 as well. But at Notre Dame looms large, at Miami, those 2 games those are games they got to split those 2 games there. But I do think this defense can turn over Cameron Ward. And that is where that Miami game is kind of like, hey, if this defense turns him over, he's prone to make those mistakes. I think they can win that game. And so he's in there. And I'm also rooting for Florida State because they got screwed last year. I think they should have been in the playoffs. So I kind of want to see them also. Can they really take that mantle away from Clemson and being, hey, that dominant program now? Because they're going out there and doing the transport thing. Clemson's not. We talked about that on the show when we did Clemson. They're doing that. So, yeah, give me that over there. And, again, I think that they come into this season. Again, they're addressing the needs there. They're recruiting very, very well. I don't know what it's going to look like when we're talking about Florida State the next couple of years because they're trying to get out of the ACC, but they are recruiting at an SEC level. And that's how you go to the national title games. That's how you go to the playoff. And I expect them to always, with Mike Norvell, who's done a fantastic team building job there outside of really that COVID year, which I'm not really going to count. Like he's done a great job there building this program, and he's built it to have a perennial playoff contender every year.
Yeah. First, I want to mention what the state of Florida, the Florida program, pretty bad. Since we didn't even mention them. That's pretty rough. But I think Florida State is looking like the more SEC team of the 2, and I think that's a cool thing within that rivalry. But yeah, I think you're right. I think this team is set up for whatever conference realignment happens. I think they're ready to go. I don't think they're going to the Big Ten. I think they'd compete in the Big Ten though if they did, and so. That's a good spot to be in for this program. I think, 10 wins is a good mark this year. I think that could potentially be enough to win the ACC, to go to the playoff. Like there's a lot of potential here. So it lies on DJU's shoulders. That's kind of scary, but hopefully they can give the ball to their running backs, get the ball out quickly. Offensive line can hold up. Defense can be elite. That's a good recipe for a lot of wins there.
Yeah, I mean, you win your conference, you get a top 4 seed, and you get a bye, and that's really what Florida State's looking for. And if they do that, hey, if they're in there and they get that bye, anything's possible at that point. And in terms of getting those home games, I think he's going to be mad for them because they have one of the best home environments in college football. They do a great job there. The fans do. So let us know what you think, Florida State fans. Do you guys think you're coming back? Do you think you can get into that playoff? How's your schedule look at 9.5 over under? And who do you think are your impact players? Let us know in the comments. We love chatting up with you. As long as you're respectful. Stay respectful out there when we're talking about that, or not. It helps the algorithm. You can say we're stupid too. We don't mind that either. So appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys in the next one.